Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today I'm going to talk about the new Battle Royale game, Planetside Arena. There was a closed beta last night. I played for 3 hours and the footage is under NDA, but I can at least share my thoughts with you. Now, what is Planetside Arena? It's essentially Planetside 2's assets taken and thrown into a Battle Royale game. Now, if you don't remember Planetside 2, it's a sci-fi themed massive multiplayer first-person shooter where over 1,000 players, I believe, can fight in one giant battlefield, like these 8x8 kilometer continents. And there's all kinds of aircraft and tanks and transport vehicles, and later in the game there's base building. So it was this huge massive endeavor of a game. It definitely carved out a niche for itself, but it never gained massive traction. It didn't appeal to the mainstream audience of shooter fan. It was a bit rough around the edges. There's definitely some issues with the game design in general, but it was a cool experience for what it was. Now, the developers are taking this universe, the Planetside universe, taking many of the assets, the large Almerish map, some of the vehicles, many of the guns, and throwing them into a Battle Royale environment. At first glance, it's going to appear very, very similar to any other Battle Royale. There's a large transport ship that flies overhead. You drop out in little drop pods, fly to a location on the map of your choosing. You get out, you have a knife, which can sort of shoot little laser knives out of it or something like that. And then you pick up guns and better shields, better jetpacks, boosts to your abilities and whatnot. There's a very basic inventory management system. And then you fight until there's one person left. And there's a large circle that slowly closes in around the players. Some things that kind of set it apart from other battle royales is that you have to pick from one of 3 different class types at the start. There's engineer, there's medic, there's assault. They're very similar, but they have slightly different abilities. The engineer class can build turrets and walls, which are good distractors in combat. The medic can self-heal, has an aura healing, which I think will be more helpful when there's squad available. The assault class has a dash ability and sort of a spike he can place on the ground that will either heal him or hurt enemies. So there's subtle differences to the classes. Everybody has a jetpack now, so you can jetpack up onto the top of buildings, and as you upgrade your soldier in the Battle Royale itself, like if you get an upgraded jetpack, you can jet up to higher locations and whatnot, make yourself a little bit more movable or mobile. Interestingly, every player can spawn a quad bike or these little hover bikes that they can jet around the map just by hitting X, and it happens pretty much instantaneously, and players can even escape firefights doing this, which is very weird, but certainly a different take on the genre. If you are in a vehicle, there's some buggies around the map that are actually 3-seaters. So if you're driving, you can switch to the gunner seat and shoot at other players, since squads wasn't available in the beta. But if you're driving around, you actually show up on the radar for other players. So it becomes much easier to track enemies when they're in vehicles, not only because you can hear them, but because they show up on the map. And so if you're going to use a vehicle, you basically are saying, okay, well, I'm in a vehicle, but you all know exactly where I am or where I'm going to. Now let's talk about the game mechanics a little bit, bearing in mind, of course, that this is a beta, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more changed before it comes out in March. But the inventory system is simple and straightforward. Basically, you don't even need to open up a backpack in this game. All the weapons are color-coded on the ground. You can just switch to, you have a primary, secondary, and then a pistol. And so you just switch to whichever weapon you want to swap out with whatever's on the ground. And so really you have just 2 primary weapons that you have to deal with, and they're color-coded. So green, blue, purple, and then orange in terms of how upgraded and how good they are. Makes it very simple, very quick to swap out. It was a little awkward picking up items on the ground at times. Sometimes you couldn't get to the item you wanted until you picked up an item that was sort of blocking it, and so that could definitely be refined a bit. Performance-wise, the game ran okay. Yeah, I got 100 plus FPS most of the time on mostly high graphics settings. I have a pretty beast computer, so when I get 100 FPS in a game, it's not unexpected. In fact, I would say it's expected in most titles. I don't know how this is going to run on a lower performance system. Visually, the game looks okay. It looks like Planetside 2, essentially. There's nothing crazy spectacular about the overall visuals of the game, but, I think it's enough to launch a Battle Royale game as long as there's good gameplay behind it. Now, unfortunately, there wasn't a whole lot in Planetside Arena that excited me. And that's not good if you're trying to break into a saturated battle royale market, especially when the underlying mechanics themselves aren't that great. I wasn't able to dial in my sensitivity properly. The sensitivity slider moves in chunks of 5%, which is weird, so I couldn't quite get my weapon sensitivity on. The soldier movement feels kind of old and outdated. Maybe it's directly copied from Planetside 2. It's been a while since I played it, but like side strafing felt slow when sprinting. Aiming down sight felt like it really slowed down my player movement to maybe an even unreasonable amount. Player animations feel a little bit clunky. Jetpacking felt a little bit clunky as well. Fall distance is awkward, where like you'll take massive damage sometimes when falling at a rate that you thought might have been safe, but then you can do a quad bike jump off of a cliff, land on your head, and you'll be fine. So there's definitely some funky like mechanics in there. They've recycled many of the Planetside 2 assets, which I can't really fault them on too much. If I had a whole game world built out and I wanted to use some of those assets to build a battle royale version of that game, it makes sense to recycle the assets. The problem is that I've always had a major issue with the way they design buildings in Planetside 2, and I feel like the windows and the floor layout and the stairway and the corridors and all that stuff has just been really bad for good firefights and shooter mechanics. And seeing those buildings recycled again in Planetside Arena is kind of disappointing. It's like, oh, I remember this building. Oh, I remember this building. Like, once you get into a firefight there, you're like, right, the shooter mechanics really suck around these corridors, or these awkwardly heighted windows that I can't quite run through and I can't quite jump through. It's just like weird. It's like it sucks that they've recycled crappy assets, I guess is what I'm saying. Something that always seems to be kind of poorly designed in just about every battle royale when it first comes out is the circle timing and the circle speed. The circle speed is very fast in this one, so fast that you actually can't catch it with a quad bike in most situations. And so if it overtakes you while you're having a firefight with another player and you're like, oh crap, let me catch up to this circle over the next 4 kilometers that I have to drive where I can never catch it and I'll constantly be taking damage. You get yourself into a situation sometimes where you're just like, wow, I've been chasing this circle for like 5 minutes and I just realized that I'm going to actually die to it. This kind of sucks. So that sort of thing needs to definitely be refined. I think the biggest letdown of Planetside Arena for the beta, I know they have different plans for March and it could be a totally different game in March, but is that the servers were capped at 100 players. Now, if you come out with Planetside Arena and say, it's Planetside Battle Royale with 100 players, I'm going to be like, I'm sorry, what's the catch here? Because Planetside 2 was always about having massive battles. The shooter mechanics, the game engine, everything else about it was subpar compared to other shooters. The thing that drew you in were these massive battles, these clan-based battles where you could have your whole clan on, you bring in tanks and airplanes and all this crap, and that was cool. Like, it was the scale of it is what drew people to it. If Planetside Arena says, hey, we got 100 players, nobody's going to give a crap about this game. You have to show that you can do Battle Royale at 500 or 1,000 players. And they have said that they have plans to do 1,000 player games. Well, I haven't seen it in the beta, and testing out a Battle Royale that's supposed to be 1,000 players with only 100 players is a terrible way to try and give feedback on a game or get an overall feel for what the game's going to be like, because multiplying a player count by 10 is going to be a completely different experience. And it could be a cool experience. Maybe I'd be willing to overlook the kind of clunky game engine, the clunky animations and soldier mechanics for an insane scale. I mean, I don't know what the feeling is like to get to the top 10 in 1,000 player battle royale. Maybe that's a whole new level of excitement and anticipation and crazy adventure that can unfold. And I think that's what kind of draws players to battle royales, is the potential for an insane adventure over the course of the game. And 1,000 player battle royale may offer even more insanity than what the current games are offering. And so not being able to test that out in the beta was super disappointing. And I think that is kind of the only way that they will ever be able to market this game or really get mass appeal, is showing an insane player count, being the first game to do a massive scale battle royale. There is that other game, Mavericks, that's also going for their massive scale battle royale. So if Planetside could beat them to the punch, that would be something that they could really use to their advantage. Anyway, I guess the beta is closed now. It was only open for a limited period of time. I hope they can get the 1,000-player thing working by March. Otherwise, I don't see myself really coming back to try out this game. As always, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.